Okay, so we were saying that historians and students of history need to thoroughly scrutinize historical sources, both primary and secondary, to avoid deception and to come up with the historical truth. Historians should be able to conduct an external and internal criticism of the source, especially primary sources, which can age in centuries. So let's look at the difference between external and internal criticism and how these tools can help us analyze, scrutinize historical events in the pursuit of historical truth. Let's first have external criticism. External criticism is defined as the verification of a document once a document has been determined to be genuine. Okay, take note of this phrase. So we will see here that the document at hand has already been determined to be genuine, napatunayan ng tunay, factual. And external criticism comes after. It is the practice of verifying the authenticity of evidence by examining the following: physical characteristics, consistency with the historical characteristic of the time when it was produced, and the materials used for the evidence. Here are examples of the things that will be examined when one is conducting external criticism of a document. So we have quality of the paper, the type of the ink, the language and words used in the material. So if you would see here, it's more of really the physical characteristics, no? Kaya nga external siya, panlabas. Okay, external criticism of the text. That is different from the internal criticism, which is higher, of a higher criticism or higher practice of criticism compared to the external criticism. That's why it's known as higher criticism. Here, it's not just concerned with the physical attributes or quality of the historical text, but it's more concerned with the validity, credibility, the worth of the content of the document, examination of the truthfulness of the evidence by looking at the content of the source, and it also examines the circumstance of its production. So it's more like answering questions, valid ba yan? Credible ba yan? May value ba yung laman yan? It's focused on examination of the truthfulness of evidence. Ano ba yung mga nangyayari at the time or the period during which that was produced? That's why we have here examines the circumstance of its production. So internal criticism looks at the truthfulness, and the factuality. Yan, yung mga fact checkers, if you want to fact check, you're doing internal criticism. Yan yung technical term. Like fact checking can be a tool or a way for conducting internal criticism. Okay, so it looks at the author of the source. Also, to determine the credibility of the text, one must also scrutinize the credibility of the author. Is the work written by a credible person, an academic in that field, professional, an expert, an educator, or was just written by someone who had no um, experience, had no expertise, gawa-gawa lang na kung sino? Was it written by trolls? So, parang ganyan. So, it's really applicable in our real-time situations at the moment. yung context ng text. Okay? Saan, kailan, ano yung mga nangyayari nang ito ay produce. The agenda behind its creation. What was the intent? If you will remember in our lesson on positivism, di ba? May mga writers tayo that produce a particular historical text with the thought of producing it for a particular audience or to convey a particular intention or message. Yan. Ano yung agenda behind the creation that is being scrutinized or analyzed in internal criticism. Okay, also the knowledge which informed it, saan galing, and the intended purpose of the production of the text. So, ayan. So, for example, we have Japanese reports and declarations during the period of the World War II. So, if we would look at, or if you would use internal criticism, these reports and declarations during the World War II should not be taken as a historical fact hastily. Internal criticism entails that the historian also acknowledge and analyze how such reports can be manipulated to be used as war propaganda. So naalala niyo yung discussion natin before na there would be times that we would, or the audience or the readers, let's say, would not consider the other points of view or the other side of the story. So titingnan lang natin, for example, na during the World War II, yung Japanese ay mga villains. Well, in fact, maybe these texts were just produced in such a manner to reflect that, uh, or to reflect that attribute sa mga Japanese. It's just manipulated to be used as war propaganda. So it's actually very important that we validate historical sources. Why? Because the use of unverified, falsified, and untruthful historical sources, untruthful historical sources can lead to equally false conclusions. So sabihin mo, iba na yung paniniwala ng mga tao. Kasi nakikita nila or yung basis nila ay mga sources that are untruthful. So, kung wala tayong thorough criticisms of historical pieces of evidence, historical deceptions and lies will be highly probable. Okay? Palagi tayong naloloko. Akala natin yun yung totoo, hindi naman pala. Kung hindi tayo magiging analytical. For example, ito ang isa sa mga biggest scandal natin in Philippine history. I don't know if you're aware of the Code of Kalantiao. The Code of Kalantiao was a code or a set of rules contained in the epic Maragtas, allegedly written by a certain Datu Kalantiao. Okay, this document was sold to the National Library, and was regarded as an important pre-colonial document. But it was only until 1968, so it was not for long. Grabe yung importance na binigay natin dito sa Code of Kalantiao na ito, thinking that it was one of our ancient texts. Pero na-disprove siya noong 1968 ni William Henry Scott, an American historian who debunked the authenticity of the code due to anachronism and lack of evidence to prove that the code existed in the pre-colonial Philippine history. So sabi ni William Henry Scott, there's no such thing. There's also lack of evidence to sufficiently prove na merong Code of Kalantiao. So wala naman palang Code of Kalantiao. It is a hoax. Okay? It's one of our biggest scandals actually in the Philippine history. Meron pang isa. Ito alam na alam natin to. When Ferdinand Marcos, the senior, claimed that he was a World War II soldier who led a guerrilla unit called ang Maharlika. This was widely believed by students and of history and followers, loyalists of Marcos. Because Marcos, sabi niya, and pinakita niya, meron siyang mga medals to show his valor. Na part daw siya. And leader pa siya ng isang guerrilla unit during the World War II. Where in fact, this claim was disproven when historians counter-checked Marcos's claims with the war records of the United States. So, ang primary sources pa rin natin nito titingnan ay yung mga records ng United States. Mga records ng US with regard to the World War II. These cases prove itong kay Marcos, okay, na find out na hindi naman pala totoo kasi wala naman siyang record doon sa US records. Walang records ng ng leadership niya, the existence of this unit. And also, in addition to this Code of Kalanchao, itong dalawang example na to prove how deceptions can propagate without rigorous historical research. Kasi di ba madali lang naman ma-produce itong mga medals na yan, kahit saan pwede mo siyang mabili. Okay? We can falsify documents as we please. But pupunta tayo dun sa mismong pinagmulan, the root of the event. Ano sinasabi nun? Yung primary sources, secondary sources. If you will not be too critical and you will not scrutinize, maloloko lang tayong lahat. Kung oo lang tayo ng oo sa mga nababasa, nakikita natin, lies will become truths. Okay, lies will become truths. And truths will become lies. Okay.